Majestic Records.
Truth, lies, fake alibis.
We can't trust what's right before our eyes.
Believe after what you see.
You are now tuned in to The Unspeakable Truth. We are so delighted to be joined by 3 local women authors. It's such an honor and pleasure to have 3 amazing women of color on the show with us today. We will be starting with Miss Darkest Shaw, the author of Lollipop Lulu. Ms. Shaw will speak to us today about her process of becoming an author and how Lollipop Lulu came to existence. We will also be joined by Aaliyah Cross, the author of Scabs and Scars. Aaliyah will talk to us today about her book and how she started the process of creating a book filled with lists, prayers, and poems. Aaliyah's book is targeted towards people that have to grow up too soon or struggling through difficult periods and or events in their lives. We are so excited to close out today's show with Bridget Robertson. She will be speaking to us today about her new book, If I Should Die Before I Wake. It's such a pleasure to learn about her writing process and how writing has helped her through her traumatic events. You are now tuned in to The Unspeakable Truth, where we speak nothing but the truth, but from a place of love.
Welcome to The Unspeakable Truth. I'm your host, Kwaku Atchafee. And in today's show, I'm so excited because we are only dealing with lady authors and ladies of color, and more specifically, black women authors. I'm so excited about this because we have 3 dynamic women with 3 very different books. But today's show, we're going to start with Darkest Shaw. I want to thank you for coming on The Unspeakable Truth.
Thank you for having me.
And so when we talk about lady authors, what was the motive? What was the impetus that gave you the will to want to write a book in the first place?
You know, it's a crazy thing. It's crazy for me. I'll tell you why. Because stories are always in my head. You know, numbers sing to me, alphabet introduce themselves to me. And so even when my kids are little, I have 4 children. And when they were little, I would make up crazy things just to entertain them. And so I've always written things down on pieces of paper. I could be driving, then some thoughts would come to my head. And then I'll stop and say, oh, yeah, look. And so then I'm writing, something crazy down. I have grandchildren, and so then I would read what I would write to my grandchildren. One time I had something called Apadaba Sabada, and the kids, they didn't like it at all. So, so basically one day I was off from work, had nothing to do, and I had written a lot of different stories, and and they were saved on the desktop, on my laptop, and in my document folder. So I'm a senior, everybody, as you can see. I went to the Senior Citizen Center one day and said, you know what, I'm going to just submit some of my stories. And so I submitted 3. One was called Kickaboo Kangaroo,
Okay.
Penny Patty, and Lollipop Lulu. And I just knew that Penny Patty would be the one that, would be accepted, if any would be accepted at all. And to my surprise, I got an email back saying, we're interested in your story, but we're interested in only one. Mm-hmm. And then I'm thinking like, okay, there you go, Penny Patty. Oh, wow.
But to your surprise.
But to my surprise, it was Lollipop Lulu. And I was like, okay.
And that's funny how that's working. You said senior, but I just like to say an elder. And I think so much comes from that because there's so much wisdom that comes in. When I look at someone who's been in the system, I know you were a social worker for years, doing things, so you had your feet down in the trenches working. When we talk about schools, we see the number 1 problem is reading, and the number 2 problem is behavior, but that's usually because there's a problem with reading.
Oh, yeah.
You can't learn to read if you don't know your alphabets. This is the structure. So with Lollipop Lulu, this is an introduction into the ABCs. But tell me how she got her name. Tell me why the ABCs.
Because, everybody knows, well, most people do know that, like K3, K4, K5, first and second grade, you learn to read. Yeah. And then by the time you're in 3rd grade, you read to learn. Yeah. And so, it's so many kids that I see that they just can't learn. They can learn, but they are not learning at the same rate of most of the times of their peers. They're not competitive and that kind of thing. So I just said, what can help our kids read? It has to be something that's fun. Yes. And if you think about rap, rap tells a story. And so then I said, okay, the kids, even if they can't read, they can, they can do all that stuff.
They learn those songs.
Yes, they learn. Yes, they do. And so I'm thinking, okay, so what what is it about rap that has these kids going? Well, rap most of the times it rhymes and it has like a rhythm. Right. That's right. Yeah, it has a rhythm. And so then I said, what can I do that has a rhythm, that rhymes, that comes alive and tell a story? And so the alphabet, well, Lollipop Lulu, the name you asked me about. Well, I thought about Lollipop Lulu because what do kids like?
Everybody like a lollipop.
Everybody likes lollipops. Everybody likes candy. So little kids like candy. So I said, okay, let's give it a sweet little name like, Lollipop. Yeah. Okay. And so then I said Lulu. Well, when I was a kid, there was this little cartoon character called Little Lulu. So I said, that's cute, Lollipop Lulu. And plus, Lollipop Lulu has a rhyme. Lollipop Lulu had a little too. So, and so then what the story is about is that it's this little girl who is resisting learning. She's kind of naughty. Yeah. She doesn't really want to learn. And you have these ABCs that's just interested. And they're just watching her. And this little girl does the most. She gets into all kinds of little hazards. And the ABCs are gently watching her. And all the while, as she sees that they're watching her, she runs away because she doesn't want this learning. But eventually, the ABCs catch up with her. And she finds out that learning is fun. And so she learns her ABCs.
So now I'm looking at this, and it's something that a parent can read to the child and have fun with. But what I'm even more interested in is because this is your first book. And so you had this wealth of knowledge, and you said, I've always had these stories and everything. So what made this the right time to write a book and give you the courage to submit those 3 stories for the one to be picked?
It's kind of, like I say, things to me are like universal. Yeah. It's just like everything falls in line. And it's just like out of nowhere, I just decided to submit it. And so that's what happened. Sometimes I think that when you're quiet, your spirit is quiet, your soul is quiet, you'll get the information you need. And it's nothing that you have to push, nothing that you have to force. It just happens. And so that's what happened with this story. It's just that it wasn't on my mind the day I woke up. It wasn't. I just happened to gingerly walk into the Senior Citizen Center and just happened to see this computer. And then no one else was around. I just happened to be bored. And so I said, I don't have anything to do. And so then I submitted it. And that's exactly how it happened. But here's the thing. I was prepared because the story was already written. Yeah, so I had done the work. So it was already there. So when that opportunity hit, I was ready for it. So that's what, that's the magic of when you're prepared for things and then that opportunity comes and then it's like, okay, I got this. You're going to be surprised at this. And this is my truth. I said, and I heard one of your authors before said, about a bucket list. Now I'm at this stage where, I do have a bucket list. And do you know one of my bucket lists was to be on TV? And I'm thinking like, oh my God. And then I have this son, he's proud of his mama for writing the Little Lulu book. And so then he, told me about
so let me do it in full disclosure because her son is my fraternity brother. And when he knew I had the show, he said, you have to get my mom on the show. But that was the impetus for the book. You want to go get this Lollipop Lulu and tune in for the rest of the show where we talk about our other lady authors. It's going to be just as great as this, The Unspeakable Truth.
Hello, I am Katrina Moore of Moore & Moore Accounting. We are a full-service accounting establishment specializing in tax preparation. Year after year, people work hard to earn more and more money. With all of the new tax code changes for 2018, don't stress, let us do the rest. Our service is professional and affordable. Our people are courteous and knowledgeable. For an appointment, call today, 414-213-8199. Moore & Moore Accounting, where you're more than just a number.
Hey, have you heard? Have you heard? Have you heard? Hey, have you heard? Hey, have you heard?
I don't know what I'm supposed to hear.
What's up, Little Vic? Have you heard? I'm hosting the Running Rebels Epic Gala September 26th.
Welcome to our new show, The Unspeakable Truth, My 24, Saturday, 7 a.m. At The Unspeakable Truth, we're not afraid to speak on those topics considered taboo. We're not afraid to bring truth to power. Are you ready for The Unspeakable Truth?
Welcome back to The Unspeakable Truth. I'm your host, Kwaku Achafi. And as we continue with our theme of lady authors, I'm sitting here with Aaliyah Cross. How are you doing?
I'm well. I'm really honored to be here.
So many times I have a question that I want to ask first, but something I want to read first. It says, because TC said I could change my part of the world.
Yeah.
Who is TC? And explain that introduction to the book.
Oh my gosh. So TC is actually my father. I always called him TC, kind of shortened, and like, he knew I was like the spunky child in the family. But just being able to like grow up and know like Milwaukee was my community, but it wasn't the only thing that was in the world. But you first start with your community, and then you learn to be an answer to like a local issue or, you know, a social change, and that creates a ripple effect in the people that impact, and they go and change their part of the world. So that's where it really came from.
I'm looking at this book, and it says Scabs and Scars.
Yeah.
Tell me what created that title. Was so powerful.
So it really happened around the time that I was like unemployed, and really just trying to like figure myself out, and I had to sacrifice employment for continuing my master's degree.
Okay.
And I was listening to a minister. He was talking about the fact that like no one wants to be a better caterpillar. So that whole idea of transformation, but you want to become a butterfly. And throughout my life, like, and being able to measure up against like my experiences versus the expectations that I had, like it really became a sum total of my experiences of like, what am I uncomfortable with? And I still kind of go back to it. And I'm still working through that trauma, which is the scab, because you have a choice in making it heal or, you know, continue to pick at it, and then you got to deal with that, right? Or you can let it scar up, and like for those things, like you know that they've healed, and that marking is like you can't go back there anymore because you're beyond that, so you got to let it go.
So you're a young lady.
I am.
So I look at this and I see a wealth of wisdom inside of it. So when you look at this and you write it, who would you say would be the perfect audience for your book?
Honestly, I grew up as an old soul, so anybody who had old parents, you know, I am that like I stand on the shoulders of like my parents. My dad was born in 1936. Wow. My mom was born in 53. So like that has its own like burden of like history and experiences within itself. But you know, I speak to an audience who like comes from an unlikely like childhood. So, you know, people who have, you know, experienced foster care or even that experience of adoption. Young girls, I actually put in there, who had to grow up too soon. So your experiences, you know, you would have liked to have like the normal childhood, but it's not that experience for you. And what I really got a chance to see as far as an audience is like speaking to the men, because we always say like, you know, are we raising our men to be husbands or to be kings or to be people who just sit on your couch? Wow. And so like that reflection or that reverberation of like, okay, I can see myself like having the experiences with women and I'm broken myself. How do I heal from that? And being able to see somebody else's like experiences, like how do I self-correct for myself?
So let me ask you this, because when I look at your book, it doesn't flow like a regular book. It's almost like a biblical kind of sense, like where you have these prose, these poems, these stories and everything that comes. And so I'm looking at something that's like the ABCs of adolescence, failed marriages, attempts, miscarriages and motherhood, 3 moms, 2 dads, wisdom of 30. These are like the 5 major chapters. Yeah. Of those 5, which is your favorite?
Honestly, I think Wisdom of 30, because like for me it was.
Wait, no, stop. I'm glad you said that, because that's one of my favorite, and this is one I love it because the Wisdom of 30 has really like these 30 kind of axioms, proverbs, or whatnot. And number 25 says this: the reality is I need to apologize for letting you into a space you were never ready for and blaming you for not being deserving. Yeah. Speak on that as it relates to relationships and who we let into our space.
Oh, yeah. So just getting to the moment of my like learning that like we don't have a choice in who we love, but we have a choice in how we love those people. Okay. And then knowing for yourself, what is it that you expect out of the people that you love and that are here to complement your life? And then how do you let go of potential? Because like that's exactly what it is. But it kind of gets back at my father when he told me like a man has to be already who he is before he meets you.
He ain't changing nobody.
Yeah. So
I look at here too, and I go inside. And I see that it has illustrations.
Yes.
And so you might think that it's a children's book at first when you look at it, which I love.
Yeah.
But when in some of your illustration, you have things like Milwaukee Cinema. You have the Sherman Phoenix.
Yeah.
Why did you put these iconic places inside of your book?
It was really big for me to know that like I felt like Milwaukee, because Milwaukee is my home. And so for a place that I felt like really shaped my experience as far as the things that I love, it also consumed a lot of the things that caused me trauma. And so for the balance in that, I wanted people to feel that moment like they were experiencing my life with me. And so you see that with Tasty Twists. You even see that with my childhood home being there. So, yeah.
And somebody's on the cover, too, so it kind of looks familiar. So now, when we think about this, though, some people say, well, I want to write a book. I want to get this out. What made it go from an ideal in your mind to actually doing it and then going out and getting it published?
The biggest thing is, like, it was a 10-year process for me. It wasn't.
So this wasn't overnight?
No, it was definitely not overnight. Because I really had to cut through a lot of things and really find myself to be comfortable. And then once I knew that my son was comfortable with the content, because he's an editor, I knew it was time to publish. And it kind of got down, like, after I turned 30, that I was like, oh, God, like, I keep moving this around on my yearly bucket list because that's what I kind of do for myself. And I was just like, I really need to get this done. And I was just like, well, if you give me an illustrator, then I'll do it. And that's exactly what happened. Steven, like, messaged me, and I was like, okay, I got...
And these are some hometown people, too, that you got editing and doing the illustration. So is it Milwaukee, a family affair? And so when I look at this book, I want to encourage all of Milwaukee to go out and to get Scabs and Scars, encourage them to write their own story, and I want them to look at Aaliyah Cross as like, you are a role model. You know, I've known you for a while now, so just to see you mature and maturate into this young woman who's not only so responsible from an individual standpoint, but to want to give to the community. You've made TC proud.
Yeah, thank you.
And so when we talk about the unspeakable truth, this is what we want to do, talk about how can we recognize those scabs and look at those scars, but make that pain turn into something purposeful, just like Aaliyah did. So I want to thank you for Unspeakable Truth. We'll be back with our next lady author, Miss Bridget Robertson, The Unspeakable Truth, where we tell nothing but the truth, but we speak it in love.
Bro, is you ready for this party tonight?
Bro, you already know, and Kiki's supposed to slide through.
Oh, for sure. Hey, I texted her parents not at the crib. You know I'm sliding through.
Alright, bro, just make sure you protect us.
So we didn't use protection after that party, right? So I think we should get tested for HIV or STI.
I mean, I ain't been feeling different. I think I'm straight.
I know, but you ain't gotta have any symptoms to have some.
Welcome back to The Unspeakable Truth. I'm your host, Kwaku Achafi. And as we continue on this theme with lady authors, I'm so excited to bring to you Miss Bridget Robertson. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me.
Now, I wanted to save you for last because you are our two-time author. So many times when people talk about writing books, how do I do it, and then getting that momentum started, tell me, why did you write your first book?
You know, I think that I've always had a love of writing as a child, and so it's always been an opportunity to use that as a space to be able to talk about what's important to me. My first book, Sunday Kind of Love, was really a collection of poetry. So it's like expressing myself as a teenage. I call it the story of like a girl's diary, and so it just became an opportunity to share in that way.
So when you talk about these poems, were these poems that were just written all at one time, or were these a collection from your youth all the way up to your adulthood?
Absolutely that. I think the first poem is written when I was a freshman in school.
High school or college?
College.
Okay.
So when I started to use kind of that medium to be able to express myself all the way through probably being a young adult. Yes.
So when you talk about this as a mental health therapist, I always tell people that writing is cathartic. Do you find it to be cathartic, or is it just something you love to do?
It's absolutely that. I think that when writing became really important to me, I was a young mother, I was married, I was working, and I didn't have an outlet to really release what I was experiencing. And so I think writing became my own personal way to be able to consider that a form of mental health therapy. Absolutely.
So I'm thinking, every night I go to bed, me and my children, we say, now I lay me down to sleep. I pray the Lord my soul to keep.
If I should die before I wake.
That's the title of your second
That's
book.
That's the title of my second book.
So tell me, is that where that came from, or what's the meaning behind that?
You know, it's really that my grandfather passed away some years ago, and we had his memorial service down in Thomastown, Mississippi. Wow. And so I remember being on the farm where his house was. And he really instilled in us this idea of legacy. And so what will you leave to the family when you go away? And so as I started to think about just, again, being a mother and what I want my legacy to look like, it's that theme of, like, if I should die, what would I tell my children? What would I want them to know about me and share about me? And so that really became the making for the inspiration of the book.
So this book is in a novel form, but it's autobiographical. So can you tell me, I know it's so many things you had to love about the book because you wrote it, but what would you say would maybe be like the 2 or 3 themes that you said, I had to make sure I get these points in to leave as that legacy?
Absolutely. I was a teen mom. So in the 1990s, I was 13 years old when I got pregnant. And so I think that we hear those stories about young girls that became teen moms, and I feel like there's no follow-up of what became of them. So for sure, an important theme in this book was being able to talk about how I navigated being a young mother, being in middle school, dealing with family and other adults who either understood or didn't understand, and then how did I make some choices after that really adult decision to be a mother, to be able to propel me into what I came to be. I think most importantly also was about the idea of secrets in families.
Yes.
My mom was definitely old school. What happens in this house stays in this house.
Don't go nowhere.
And she meant that. But I really felt like there was a level of secrets made me sick. And so I really wanted to be able to use the book to talk about things that happened in my childhood that were traumatic, that really impacted the way I began to show up in the world.
Let me ask you that, because that is so powerful, because so many people do keep those secrets inside and they become a sickness. But when we tell them, now it's other people, what we call collateral damage. How do you decide what to write, when to write, and who to expose it to?
Absolutely. I think that in writing the book, there's a part of you that feels guilty because now you're exposing those secrets of the family. I really spent time talking to my mother, my children, about I'm choosing to share this. And I had to be almost unapologetic with saying this is not only going to be for my healing, but I really feel like it was going to be able to help somebody else. I've always felt that my writing has been able to be almost a testimonial for others to be able to say I'm not the only one. And so I hope that with this novel that people got to see this lens of things happen, but you can also overcome those things that happen.
See, I love talking to you because when we're going through this, I can feel people like saying, yes, this is me. But somebody's got a book inside of them now and they say, I want to get it out, but I don't know how. How did you go from saying, okay, I want to do it, to even I'm writing some things in the privacy of my own home, in my own eyes, to I'm really going to go out and try to get this done?
Sure. This definitely was a childhood dream that just came to fruition. I remember saying when I was 10 years old, I want to be a writer, but what does that mean? I started to blog when I was late 30s and really decided to use it as a platform to say, well, people even like what I write about. I caught the attention of an editor who was based out of San Antonio, and so she actually inboxed me on Facebook. So never doubt the power of Facebook.
Social media.
It works. And she said, if you're ever in my city, I would love to sit down and talk to you. And the way the universe worked it out, I was traveling there for vacation, had an opportunity to connect with her, and she really was interested in my story and felt like it would be something that she could pitch to her team. And then things just kind of moved really quickly after that. But it was me saying that this is important to me. It was on that life vision board, if you have it. And the universe really just made it a way so that I didn't have to self-publish. I got someone to actually pick me up, and they have just been a blessing to help me make this project a dream come true.
Now, one of the things that you just said, and I want you to get a chance to do today, you said sometimes we talk about teenage pregnancy and we don't understand what happened afterwards. We see that and people are upset, frustrated, or whatnot. But give us a little bit of the aftermath of your story.
Sure. Again, was 13 when I got pregnant. I was 14 when my son was born. But I really had a mother that acknowledged that there had been some signs that she missed in terms of my exploration as a young girl. I really think that it was about the village that really poured into me. I talk in the book about having just some really amazing teachers in MPS, shouts out to MPS, that really were saying, we are going to make sure that this doesn't become the end for her. And I think it was through their guidance that I ended up being able to be the first in my family to go off to college. I had an opportunity to be able to continue doing what was important to me because I had a village behind me saying, this is not the end and you can still make it. And thank goodness and thank God that happened.
So how far did you get in school? I'm curious.
I'm boasting. First generation to graduate from Marquette University as an undergrad, master's degree, and in 2015 I also earned my Juris Doctorate. So I am.
That means you're a lawyer, a lady, Esquire.
That part, yes.
So look, Sister Bridget, I just want to thank you for sharing your story. We're going to put up all the information on the site if somebody want to get your book, how they can get it. And I just want to thank you for coming in, sharing your story, but most importantly, being brave enough to write it. Because that's something special just for you. Even if nobody gets it out, you wrote it and helped yourself. I'm so proud of you, and I want to appreciate you for coming on Unspeakable Truth, where we speak nothing but the truth, but we speak it in love.
It's okay to be scared. You don't have to be so strong.
Strength is not optional. This is my mother, my purpose. Real muscle is lifting her spirits between bedpans and bad news from doctors that doubt her strength. Strength is buried in bills, managing meds, and swallowing those moments of, Mom, it's me, your daughter. Remember? My strength is super, but I'm still human, right?
Look who's here. There she is. Thanks for your patience.
How you feel?
If you're caring for a loved one, visit aarp.org/caregiving for care guides and community, or call 1-877-333-5885.
To help me, she'd have to help every day. Every hour, every ouch, every time my wife calls for help. I mean, maybe she could help me make her lunch, but the crust, all the crust has to be cut off the corners.
Hey, have you heard?
Have you heard? Have you heard? Hey, have you heard? Hey, have you heard?
I don't know what I'm supposed to hear.
What's up, Lil Vic? Have you heard? I'm hosting the Running Rebels Epic Galalala, September 26th.
Thank you to our closed caption sponsor, Fresh Start Family Services.
Majesty Records.
Truth, lies, fake alibi.